In early 2016, news of college protests rang out. Students barred others from auditoriums, threatened speakers, and protested their speeches. Their reason? To assert their First Amendment rights and let the people know of the opposing view, that they were spouting hate and violence and it would not be tolerated. Hate speech makes them feel threatened, offended, and uncomfortable. Attorney General Jeff Sessions claims that institutions such as universities should promote free speech and reason.
The more fundamental issue is that the university is supposed to be a place where we train virtuous citizens. It's where the next generation of Americans are equipped to contribute to and live in a diverse and free society filled with many, often contrary voices.
When universities no longer support free speech, ideas and reason will stop flowing, and we as a country will cease to progress. The censorship of opposed speech has stopped invited speakers from delivering their message and speech from their own participation in free speech. It has become a widespread issue. Surveys taken by bookings.edu show that the majority of 44 of 100 college campuses believe that what they think is hate speech is not protected under the First Amendment. Another survey from the same site found another majority, on 51 of 100 college campuses, that believe their campus should devise a safe space protecting students from whatever they deem offensive. And 51 out of 100 colleges believe that it is acceptable to disrupt speeches by loudly and repeatedly shouting so that the audience cannot hear the speaker. These statistics show a lack of support, or rather, misinterpretation, of the First Amendment from our universities. Lastly, a study done by Pew Research Center has found that Americans today are far more likely to say government should be able to censor offensive speech towards minorities, with pretty staggering numbers at 40%. This is a threat to our fundamental rights as a society. A new generation of voters is not being brought up to believe that all speech, save inciting violence, is protected no matter how unpopular or opposed it is. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, in the same speech you watched before, makes the argument that free speech is vital to our society by relating it to the movement that Martin Luther King Jr. brought, one that was heavily opposed, but in the end was just and moral. If Martin Luther King Jr. had been shut down by protests, the world we live in now would not be our world. College students who align themselves more with conservative ideals find that it is difficult and often scary to share their opposing opinions without a sizable backing as found by a right-leaning news provider, statepress.com. This fear that has manifested itself in students is a result of censorship, stereotyping, and is destructive to the First Amendment. Ben Shapiro, a Jewish political commentator, columnist, and author, who has been on tour throughout the USA doing speeches, has been stopped from speaking on multiple occasions on many college campuses. Despite the school spending $500,000 on security for Shapiro's event, UC Berkeley felt the safest choice was to shut it down after violent protests. Other public speakers who are enlisted to speak have the same issue. Their message is what separates them from other speakers who do not receive such violent protests: the hate speech. Another now public speaker is heavily protested and widely opposed by the left. Professor of psychology at the University of Toronto, Jordan Peterson found his fame when he refused to call a student by their proclaimed pronouns. His main protest is Bill C-16, one that prevents anyone from calling anyone by their pronouns incorrectly. This has taken effect in Canada. He believes that Bill C-16 is a power play by the leftist Canadians, and it is nowhere near just. Pointing out these issues and their harbors is not to show who the enemy is, or who's at fault, because there are extremists on both ends. We all can name at least one radical event on the part of either side. I'm also not trying to point out that either side is wrong in putting out their opinions. I'm simply stating that the censorship of speech is not an effective way to progress as a country. Disrupting intellectual thought, as happened to Professor Peterson and Mr. Shapiro is not a healthy way to maintain one's values. Instead, combat their theory with facts of your own. Free speech, without question, is of the utmost importance for many reasons. One being that you, the citizen, is heard whether you are talking about world peace, genocide, or why it's bad to make a project at the last minute. You're heard. Not all ideas you hear today were popular before now, but through the First Amendment, people became aware of an idea and took it as their own. The attack on free speech, as seen at many colleges, a place of thought, reason, and intellect mostly, is a threat to your freedom and ability to express yourself. I urge anyone who believes that unpopular speech should be neither here nor there to become a better listener and form educated opinions rather than following someone else's blindly.